you're here. So as people are making their way in, let me welcome you to this dining room, to this table. Your seat is waiting for you. It would have been very lonely without you. So thank God you're here. When we did our Zoom Seders last year, it worked beautifully. And we said, next year in Jerusalem, next year in person. And yet, here we are again. I want to acknowledge how hard it is to do this a second time around. Nobody wants it this way, but we are nevertheless grateful for the tools and the technology to be able to gather at all, to celebrate our traditions together in sacred community. And now I would like to just go over a little bit of housekeeping, okay? So we are recording this Seder so that if anyone wants to make use of it tomorrow evening, it will be waiting for them on our website. I'd like to remind you that you should have received a link to the Haggadah that we'll be using. You probably received an email from us with a link to the Haggadah. If you don't already have that pulled up onto your screen, you can look in the chat box and you'll see the link is there ready for you again. So all you need to do is click on there and you'll see the slides of the pages of our Haggadah. If you like this Haggadah, this is like a preview. It's brand new, hot off the press. And if you like it, we would encourage you to purchase your own, either as a flip book or an ebook or a hard copy through the CCAR press. All the details are available. The link that you have will magically disappear after the holiday. Those who are leading the Seder, Deanna or Joanne will automatically spotlight you and you'll just need to unmute yourselves. You'll get a prompt for that, and we thank all the members of the congregation who are helping to lead sections of the Seder. A big shout out to Deanna and Joanne who are working behind the scenes to make sure everything goes so smoothly. So if you want to do a clap or a wave or an emoji to give a shout out to Deanna and Joanne, I know it's an expression of our gratitude. Everyone else is muted throughout the Seder until the very end when it'll be opened up and everyone can give a shout of Chag Sameach. You'll also be unmuted during the Zoom dining room. So when it comes for the meal, we'll have a half an hour to either go into Zoom rooms, and that happens in a random kind of way. So unfortunately, you can't pick who you'd like to dine with tonight. But last year, those who participated in the Zoom rooms reported just how thrilled they were to be with old friends and new, to meet some new people and strike up some great conversation. We've all been a little too lonely in lockdown, in isolation. So please do participate in the Zoom dining rooms so that you can enjoy some good company tonight. You are most welcome to Nash. I encourage you to Nash a little throughout the front part of the Seder. Nowhere is it written that you should be hungry and uncomfortable. And nowhere is it written that the matzah has to be the very first taste of the meal. So if you have any snacks or appetizers on your table, please help yourself. Even Maimonides from the 12th century says that's a good idea. Finally, I want to encourage everyone to sing along and read along, even if your voice is the only one you can hear at home. And we also want to encourage you to use the chat box as a way to wish each other Chag Sameach. From time to time, I'll offer up a question to spark conversation through the chat box. We want this experience to be as communal as possible. So I'm going to begin quickly now with this beautiful poem by Merle Feld to help set the tone, and then we'll turn to candlelighting by our president, Avra Rosen. The poem is entitled Passover Miracle. That we find our spring selves again, shed the thick protective layers of winter that shield but separate us from the world out there. We sit at the Seder table, tired, yes, but hoping to be refreshed, hoping in spirit to be refreshed. Sitting at the Seder table, we encounter our younger selves, wide-eyed, asking questions. We become each year once again the 4 sons, 4 daughters, childlike, springlike, ready each year once again to go out from Egypt, with nothing but a pack on our back, ready to walk once again out into the wilderness in search of our freedom and our God. And with that, it is my pleasure to call to the screen here our fearless president, Avra Rosen, and Mark Goodman.
Now in the presence of loved ones and friends, before us the emblems of Freedom's Festival, we gather in sacred celebration. United with the whole household of the people Israel, we link past with future, generation to generation. And here again, the time was called to service. Tonight, we tell a story that resounds far and wide, a tale whose shining conclusion is yet to unfold. With joy, we share the songs, foods, prayers, and hopes of Pesach. As it is written, you shall keep the feast of unleavened bread, for on this very day I freed you from the land of Egypt, and you shall observe this day throughout your generations. It is a sacred practice for all time.
זכור את היום הזה אשר יצאתם ממצרים, מבית עבדים, כי בחוזק יד הוציא אדוני אתכם מזה. Remember the day on which you went forth from Egypt, from the house of oppression, and how with a mighty hand the Eternal brought you out of that place.
So before I light the candles, I have the honor of introducing a special guest to Holy Blossom's virtual Congregational Seder. Mayor John Tory has been the mayor of our beautiful city since 2014. He is no stranger to Holy Blossom and participated in our first virtual Congregational Seder last year, shortly after Toronto entered its first lockdown due to this pandemic. Mayor Tory, we have a picture of you on our website showing us your impressive Seder plate, and I'm looking forward to seeing this year's Seder plate. I also think that if it was stressful to me being president of a synagogue these past 12 months, pivoting like every other organization to the virtual world, dealing with the virus in real time while trying to keep up to date and understanding the science and its impact on all of us and keeping us and our city safe, that it has to be very stressful for you. I have also learned through Rabbi Splansky of her strong relationship with you. You have met regularly with faith leaders from all religions to understand the impact of COVID-19 on our houses of worship and how you and the city can be of assistance to us. Thank you very much. I also know that you are the chair of the executive committee considering a report next week called Toronto for All, Addressing Anti-Semitism, as Toronto has seen a spike in anti-Semitic occurrences in the last few years, as well as globally, where Jewish communities have faced deadly attack. We are grateful for your initiatives in this respect. So Mayor Tory, it's my pleasure to welcome you back to Holy Blossom Temple.
Well, thank you very much, Hag Pesach Sameach. And I just want to say very much how much I appreciate being invited again this year. It's always nice to be invited once, and it's nice to be invited back. And I'm sorry that it has to be in this virtual setting, but you know, it's still very special. And it just is one more sacrifice that people are making. But if you think of how much abundance that we have here, the sacrifice of both not being with all of the family, and for that matter, I was the beneficiary many times. I have had Passover with relatives over time, but I've also shared Passover Seders with many so-called strangers. I mean, people that I know, and in fact with people I didn't know over time. And that is a sacrifice, not to be able to do it the traditional way, but I'm sure it's going to be a sacrifice that's worth it in the end. And I thank you very much. I could thank this community, this faith community, for many, many things, as you know, and I try to do it all the time. But I want to thank you in particular for the fact you are marking Passover in a virtual manner, because that means you are following the public health guidance. And unfortunately, you know, we're just not in a position as yet where we can just say it's back to life as usual. In fact, some of the signs are very disconcerting at the moment, and we have a very difficult balancing act, those of us who have these public responsibilities, to try to make sure we can accommodate the things people want to do, but also make sure that we keep people safe. And the paramount objective, obviously, is to try and keep people safe. COVID has changed a lot of things, but it hasn't changed the importance of Passover, and it hasn't changed, what is behind it. It reminds, of course, the Jewish people of the fact that they have stood in the shoes of refugees and people in search of their freedom. But I hope it also reminds all of us of not just that history, but also the fact there are still many people today who are seeking their liberty and trying to find the kind of freedom that we enjoy here in this country. I have heard the story of Passover, of course, many times at the, and I do have my Haggadah here, and we'll take pleasure again in revisiting the story, because you can't often enough. But I think the story is not only relevant and contemporary this year, but I think it's more relevant and contemporary, even despite its long history, than ever, because of what we've gone through together. I hope that you work with each other as you have done so well. The Jewish community has been an absolute role model, a pillar in terms of helping those who are less fortunate within and outside of your own community. And I'm very grateful for that. I think one of the success stories, if there are any such things coming out of the pandemic, has been the fact that Torontonians have helped each other, especially our most vulnerable people. And I think the Jewish community has been at the forefront of that. And I'm very grateful for that. And I hope that that it's not lost on us when I talk about the relevance of the history of Passover, that it was plagues that were not visited on the Jewish people that played a key role, of course, in the liberation of the Jewish people. And I hope that we can see the rest of the way clear to liberate ourselves in many ways. Of course, in every single way, the liberation we're looking for now is much different, and so on. It's a liberation back to a way of life that was very privileged. But having said all that, I hope that we can continue to work together to once again rid ourselves of this plague and defeat it. I'll finish just with this note. Beyond saying thank you to the rabbi, because she gives me such wise counsel whenever I gather faith leaders together to try and help both in terms of some of the difficulties we faced in people being able to worship. And that's been a terrible agony for those of us, again, in public life, because we know of the importance of worship for so many people. And we're trying again to gradually get ourselves back to something that is more in the direction of normal. But I also just want to ask you to have hope. I think the miracles of modern science with the vaccines, the perseverance of people, should allow us to emerge. And if you think about the Israelites, the Jewish people, heading off with nothing except really trust and faith as they left Egypt, we have to have that trust and faith in each other today, and that there is a brighter light at the end of the tunnel for all of us, and that hopefully we're getting towards the end of the tunnel. So again, I wish you all Hag Pesach, Chemiach, and I hope that you have a very happy Passover. And I thank you very much for letting me join this gathering here tonight. And that I hope the rest of the evening is not as good as it will be next year, but is nonetheless something that is very enjoyable and very important as you celebrate this very important occasion. Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thank you, Mayor Tory. I'm just going to come over here to light my candles with everybody. Amen to what you said, and to stay safe. Thank you for all that you're doing for us in the city of Toronto. So as I light the candles, hopefully the matches are better than Holy Blossom. And I will warn everybody, you really don't want to hear me sing, but I can only say I'm singing. Okay, you can laugh at me, Mark. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitchanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel yom tov. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, Avra and Mark, and thank you, Mayor Tory. This Pesach is called a festival of freedom, and we do not take our religious freedoms for granted. We thank God for this good country, for this great city. We thank you for joining us, for elevating this occasion with your presence. We wish you and your family a happy Easter, your extended family a happy Pesach. Both Pesach and Easter are celebrations of incremental steps towards redeeming the world. We thank you for your leadership at this trying time. May God bless you and make the work of your hands a blessing for all Torontonians. Now, the first question I'm going to ask for people to answer if they wish through the chat box is, what do you have on your Seder table tonight that might be a ritual object that's a family heirloom, or maybe a recipe that came down to you from generations before? While you're answering that question, I'm going to point out the candlesticks on my table. These are very special. We only use them on festival nights. They are a replica of the candlesticks that were made for my grandfather, Rabbi Ernst Lorge of blessed memory. He was part of as a chaplain, he was part of the American Army, which liberated Buchenwald. And he stayed on after the war to help the DPs, the displaced persons, to help them find one another, reuniting families. And as a gift for him, some of the DPs crafted, using the factory that was at the camp at the time, these candlesticks. These are replicas. My mother has the originals, but I treasure these. And on this Festival of Freedom, I remember my grandfather and how he fought for liberty and liberation for our people. So there's some beautiful answers coming through in the chat. I know everyone has a story to share. So thank you for those who are participating. Keep the answers coming along. We're going to continue now with our Seder. And we invite Cantor Rosen to the screen, page 5.
Chag Sameach, everyone. Great to be with all of you and to celebrate Passover together at this time. Of course, our Seder meaning order, starts with an order. And before we start our ritual of Kiddush, our sanctification of our cup of wine to make this day holy, we sing the order of the Seder, Kadesh Orchatz. Kadesh Orchatz, Karpas Yachatz, Magid Rachza, Motzi Matzah, Maror Korech, Shulchan Orech, Tzafun Parech, Hallel Nirtzah. And just so you always know where we are in the Seder, if you look on your right-hand column, the place where we are in the order is highlighted usually. So of course we are at Kadesh or Kiddush, and we'll continue now with our Kiddush. What is our story? What is our theme? We recall tonight that in diverse ways and with different worlds, God promised freedom to our people. V'hotzeti etchem, v'hitzalti etchem, v'galti etchem, v'lakachti etchem. I will free you, I will save you, I will redeem you, I will take you. With a blessing over the fruit of the vine, we remember each of these as now the first. Ani Adonai v'hotzeti etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim, sivat Mitzrayim. I am Adonai, and I will free you from the burdens of Egypt. So we are about to do Kiddush, which can be found on the bottom of the next page. Of course, Kiddush, because we are going from Shabbat into another holy day, we intertwine Havdalah, but it's not a typical Havdalah as we see. We've lit our Yom Tov candles, and we don't have a braided candle, and we don't celebrate the light in the same way, and we don't cast shadows upon our hands, but we go from holy to holy. And so interwoven in this Havdalah is our Kiddush, to go from the holy that was Shabbat into the holy of the Yom Tov. Bottom of the next page. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'am ורוממתנו מכל לשון, וקידשנו במצוותיו, ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה, מועדים לשמחה, חגים וזמנים לששון, את יום חג המצות הזה, זמן לחירותנו מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ומועדי קודשך בשמחה ובששון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש ישראל והזמנים. Lai lai la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam בורא מאורי האש, בורא מאורי האש. And we do not have this samim, for we are already smelling the sweetness of Shabbat and taking that into our festival of Pesach. So we continue with this special blessing, again, merging the two before we actually take a drink from our Kiddush cup. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamabdil ben kodesh lechol, ben or lechoshech, ben Yisrael le'amim, ben yom hashvi'i l'sheshet yemei ha'ma'aseh, ben kiddushat Shabbat l'kedushat yom tov hivdalta, ואת יום השביעי מששת ימי המעשה קידשת, הבדלת וקידשת את עמך ישראל בקדושתך. המבדיל בין קודש לקודש. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. לחיים.
L'chaim. Yasher Koach, Cantor Rosen. Next, we will press on to the Orchatz, and Rabbi Helfman will lead us. Oops, Rabbi Helfman, you just need to unmute, and we're together on page 10.
In silence, I pour upon my hands water from the cup of life. As I feel it on my skin, I am refreshed and renewed for a life of purpose. As it flows over my hands, it reminds me to cleanse myself of unworthy pursuits and petty concerns. As this water is pure, so too let the works of my hands be pure. As water has the power to heal and revive, so too may I use my strength to sustain life now and always. Now we're turning to karpas. So if you have your parsley on your Seder plate in front of you, or On the side of your plate, we pick it up. We'll begin with a poem before we say the blessing. In my family, it's a tradition to dip the karpas in the salt water, and then it drips. Of course, the reason, of course, for the salt water is the tears of our ancestors and the sorrow at their servitude. So it's at the bottom left of the second karpas page, first the poem. Instructions on not giving up. More than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crabapple tree, more than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs, shoving their cotton candy-colored blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains. It's the greening of the trees that really gets to me, when all the shock of white and taffy, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with the confetti of aftermath. The leaves come. Patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us. A return to the strange idea of continuous living, despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then, I'll take it, the tree seems to say. A new slick leaf unfurling like a fist to an open palm. I'll take it all. Off then we'll go, early to the vineyards to see if the vine is in flower, if its buds have opened, if pomegranates are in bloom. There, my love, will be yours. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri ha'adamah. Source of blessing, sovereign God of eternity, the fruit of the earth is your creation.
Yasher Koach, Rabbi Helfman. Oh, our salt water is really salty. So that was the first hand washing. We've been washing our hands double time. We've been doubling down on hand washing this whole year. So Rabbi Helfman led us through the first hand washing and through the karpas to greet this early spring. Thank God for this early spring that's come to Toronto. And now we turn to Yachatz. We're cruising right along here, page 15. So now we turn to the pile, the stack of 3 matzot that you have. Adam, if you can take out the middle matzah of the 3, and we break it in half. And it never, this is, I don't know, the magic of Pesach, it never breaks on the lines. Let's see. And then we take, that was pretty good.
That wasn't bad.
We take the Afikomen bag from Holy Blossom Temple Nursery School. And Adam's going to find a good hiding place for this. Even though all our boys are grown, you've never outgrown the search for the Afikomen. So I hope you're, I see it's fantastic, actually, I have to say, to see all your tables beautifully dressed. It's just, it's quite moving, I have to say. After all we've been through and all the stress and strain, nevertheless, we greet the holiday with your beautiful tables and all the ritual objects. So we're on page 16 now. The middle matzah has been broken, and we hold up the matzah. Shai, can you hold up a piece of matzah? And this matzah is called, on the one hand, the bread of affliction, on the other hand, the symbol of our freedom. Halachma, halachma an yadi achalu, achalu avhatana, behara, behara demitzrayim, behara, behara demitzrayim, kol dichvin yete veichul, kol ditzrich yete veifsach, Hashataha Lashana Haba Be'arade Yisrael Hashata Avde Lashana Haba Bene Chorin. Here, this is the bread of affliction. Here is the bread our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Anyone who is hungry, come and eat. Anyone who is in need, come and find a place at our Pesach table. Now we are here next year in the land of Israel. Now we are slaved. Now we are slaves next year, free and liberated people. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. And how do we transform this matzah from being the bread of affliction to being the symbol of our freedom? There's only one way, and that is by sharing it. When we break bread together, when we invite those in need to come and feast together with us, that is when the matzah is transformed. Now, I believe we're going to jump. Jesse, are you ready? So, yes, page 18. Big voice, Jess. Yeah, that's for you.
From the youngest to the eldest we will go, all the generations and genders together. With our flocks and with our herds we will go, for this festival of the eternal is ours. So it was at first, and so it is today. I'll have a place at the Seder. I'll have a part in our people's story.
And now to lead the Manish Tana on page 19, we call Joel Rosen to the screen.
So they can see you. There we go.
מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות, מכל הלילות, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים המת ומצה, המת ומצה. הלילה הזה, הלילה הזה, כולו מצה. הלילה הזה, הלילה הזה, כולו מצה. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאור ירקות, שאור ירקות. הלילה הזה, מרור, מרור. הלילה הזה, מרור, מרור. שבכל הלילות איננו מפילים, אפילו פעם אחת, אפילו פעם אחת. הלילה הזה, שותף ועמים. הלילה הזה, שותף ועמים. שבכל הלילות אנו הולכים בין יושבים ובין מסובים, בין יושבים ובין מסובים. הלילה הזה, כולנו מסובים. הלילה הזה, כולנו מסובים.
Asher Koach, Joel, beautifully done. And really, your voice just did us good tonight. Thank you. Beautiful. And stay curious, asking all those good questions. Here's the next question for our chat box, for a little chat conversation. If you could add a symbol to the Seder plate to represent what we have endured this year of pandemic, what might you suggest we add to the Seder plate as a symbol of what we have endured? And while those answers are coming through, while you're thinking about it, we continue on page 20 and we begin to answer the questions that Joel asked. Avadim avadim hayinu lefaro b'Mitzrayim vayotzienu Adonai Eloheinu misham beyad chazaka ubizro netuya ve'il lo hotzi hakadosh baruch hu et avotenu mimitzrayim הרי אנו בנינו בני בנינו משועבדים היינו לפרעה במצרים. עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורים, בני חורים. עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורים. עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורים, בני חורים. אתה בני חורים, בני חורים. Slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, yes, we were slaves, but then with a mighty hand, with arm outstretched, God brought us out of there. And know this, if the Holy and Blessed One had not freed our ancestors from Egypt, then we, our children and our children's children, would still be Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt today. And now we call to the screen Doctors Alice and Ron Chirac to lead us, page 24. We're going to get to know these 4 children. Keep the good answers coming.
Chacham Mahu Omer, there are wise sons and daughters. What do they say? What are the testimonials, the ethical and ritual obligations which our eternal God requires? You yourself shall teach them all the practices of Pesach, up to the final rule. After the Seder, we do not turn to other food or entertainment. You who would be wise should inquire into the nature of justice and evil from your teachers, seekers like yourself, and the students who question your answer.
Rasha Mahu Omer, there are sons and daughters who reject our rituals and traditions. What do they say? What is this Seder ceremony to you and not to us? By rejecting the community, they have denied the essence of Jewish life. You in turn shall respond with conviction and say to them, this is because of what the Eternal did for me when I went forth to Egypt. For me and not for you. If you had been there, you might not have been redeemed. Untitled. She said, every sentence is an accusation. And I thought, she speaks well. That child has always known what to say about the world. She is beautiful, has a clear head and cosmic notions. My God, I said, you're right. That's the way it is. The world speaks to you nowadays in accusations. It doesn't leave you alone for a minute. It thinks everything is your fault. The world is like that. No, she said, I was not talking about the world. I was talking about you. Yes, I said, that's it. That's just what I meant.
Chag Sameach, Alice and Ron. Thank you for leading us, and especially in the beautiful poetry. Only a poet himself knows how to read like that. And I skipped an important page, so I hate to say it, but I'm going to go back. Page 23. Baruch hamakom baruch hu, baruch shenatan Torah, le'amo Yisrael, baruch hamakom baruch hu.
Blessed is the one who is all present, all embracing. Blessed is the one whose gift to Israel is Torah. 4 times the Torah tells us, teach your children about the Exodus from Egypt. 4 times we are reminded, and you shall tell your child on that day. From this, the sages infer that there are 4 kinds of people. And so at our Seder, we speak of sons and daughters who are wise and those who reject our rituals and traditions. Sons and daughters who are simple and those who do not know how to ask. And we are taught, respond to them in different ways, according to their questions, their situations, and their needs.
Thank you, Adam. So now we will be introduced to the second set of the children. Marla Spiegel and Joe Donahue and their son Sam and Aiden will lead us. We are on page 26.
Tam Mahu Omer, Ma Zot, Ve'omarta lo elav, B'chazak Yad Hotzienu Adonai Mimitzrayim, Beit Avdim.
There are sons and daughters who are simple. What do they say?
What is this?
And you shall say to them,
With a mighty hand, the Eternal freed us from Egypt, from the house of oppression. Visha'e yadei lishol, at pachad lo, shene'emar.
there are sons and daughters who do not know how to ask. With them, you must take the initiative as Torah teaches.
You shall tell your child on that day, saying, This is because of what the Eternal did for me when I went forth from Egypt.
As in the pages of our history, so too our daily lives. These four characters, the one who is wise, the one who rejects, the one who is simple, and the one who does not know how to ask, reappear in unexpected ways. Throughout imagination and study, we ponder these questions and consider the difficulties they raise, all the while speaking insights to give meaning to people's narrative and to our own stories.
Well done. Chag Sameach, Spiegel Donahue family. And of course, as we hear the descriptions and the questions that come from these four types of children, we of course recognize that we all take turns being each one in different scenarios, different circumstances. We see them in ourselves, we see ourselves in them. One of the beautiful things about this new Haggadah from the Reform movement is all the poetry. We're going to skip over most of it tonight, but I hope you'll enjoy it on your own time as you go, and that you'll purchase a copy of the Haggadah for yourself in full so you can really appreciate its richness. I'm going to read just the last paragraph of this beautiful poem by Marge Piercy entitled Magid. We Jews are born of wanderers with shoes under our pillows and a memory of blood that is ours raining down. We honor only those Jews who changed tonight, those who chose the desert over bondage, who walked into the strange and became strangers, and gave birth to children who could look down on them, standing on their shoulders for having been slaves. We honor those who let go of everything but freedom, who ran, who revolted, who fought, who became other by saving themselves. And now we're going to ask another question for the chat box conversation. And that is a question about what's next and what we're dreaming of, what we're hoping for, as Mayor Tory urged us. We're in constricting places right now, but somewhere on the horizon will be open spaces and a return and a reclaiming of the freedoms we once knew. So my question for you tonight is, what openness do you wish to reclaim for yourself? What do you hope to discover perhaps for the first time? What are you looking forward to doing once we can come out of our lockdown? So while you're thinking and filling the chat box with thoughtful answers, we call Judy Adler and Henry Lowton to the screen, and they'll lead us on page 32.
All right. And so a tale is told of Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Joshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Tarfon, who are reclining in Bnei Brak, recounting the exodus from Egypt all that night, until their students came and said to them, "Our teachers, the time has come to recite this morning's Shema." Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, "Here I was like a person of 70, and yet I never understood why we should speak at night of the exodus from Egypt, until Ben Zoma interpreted this verse, in order that you may remember the day of your departure from Egypt all the days of your life. The days of your life refers only to the days, but all the days of your life includes the nights as well. And the sages say, The days of your life refers to this world, and all the days of your life refers to the world to come.
Early on, our ancestors served idols, and it is said of old, your ancestors, Terah, father of Abraham and father of Nahor, dwelled beyond the Euphrates and served other gods. But now the all-present has drawn us close, and we are in God's service. A wandering Aramean was my forebear. His life in peril, he went down to Egypt, sojourned there with meager numbers, and there became a nation, mighty and strong, great in number.
Chag Sameach. Thank you both. And while Carrie Solomon and Lisa Heidman are making their way to the screen, let me say that in this Magid section, as we're telling our story and we're revisiting where our people come from and what are our roots, I admit that throughout this year of pandemic, I've found over and over again that knowing where we come from has been a great source of strength for me and for the congregation, I think. Telling the stories of our people, knowing that we've seen worse than this, that we've survived more hardships than this, has been uplifting, has been an inspiration, and also an anchor for us during this time. So let's continue with the storytelling. Carrie and Lisa will lead us on page 35.
I led your father Abraham across the Euphrates and guided him into the land of Canaan, and I multiply his descendants. I gave him Isaac, and to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. To Esau I gave the hill country of Seir as an inheritance, while Jacob and his children, a family that numbered 70 souls, went down into Egypt. And Joseph, already in Egypt, emerged as a powerful leader in that land. And there was famine in all lands, but everywhere in the land of Egypt there was bread. And Pharaoh said to all of Egypt, "Go to Joseph, you shall do as he says." And all the world came to Joseph in Egypt to find sustenance.
Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are too great in number for us. Let us act with cunning towards them, lest they multiply. And when war comes, join our enemies, fight against us, and rise up from their degradation." So they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with forced labor. And they built store cities for Pharaoh, Pithom, and Ramses. The Egyptians made their lives bitter with cruel labor at mortar and bricks and in the fields. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased, and the more they expanded, so that the Egyptians were in dread of the Israelites.
Chag Sameach, Carrie, Lisa, thank you. So good to see you and to hear your voices. To continue with the storytelling and to introduce us to two of the heroes of the story, Shifra and Pua, we call Jane and Rob Herman to the screen, and they'll continue with these first conscientious objectors, page 37.
ויאמר מלך מצרים למיילדות העבריות, אשר שם האחת שפרה ושם השנית פועה, ויאמר. Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, one named Shifra and the other named Pua, and he said,
"When you are delivering the Hebrew women, and you see the stones on which they give birth, if it is a son, you shall cause his death. If it is a daughter, let her live."
And the midwives revered God and would not do as the king of Egypt had said. Rather, they let the boys live. So the king of Egypt called out to the midwives and asked,
"Why have you let the boys live?"
The midwives said to Pharaoh, "It is because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They have more vitality. They give birth before the midwife arrives." So God was good to the midwives, and the people grew many times over. And Pharaoh charged his whole people, saying,
"You shall cast into the Nile every son that is born, but every daughter let her live."
We cried out to Adonai, God of our ancestors, and Adonai heard our voice and saw our affliction, our suffering, and our oppression.
Chag Sameach, Jane and Rob. Thank you. And to continue this story now, on page 40, we call Dr. Michael Davis to the screen.
And God heard their groaning, and God remembered the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God saw the Israelites, and God knew. Then Adonai responded to Moses, "See, I have given you divine status unto Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. When you speak all that I instruct you, your brother Aaron will tell Pharaoh to send forth the Israelites from his land. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, so that my signs and my wonders may increase throughout the land of Egypt. I will cross the land of Egypt on this night, and smite every firstborn from humankind to beast in the land of Egypt. And I will carry out judgment against all the gods of Egypt. I, Adonai." And Adonai freed us from Egypt with arm outstretched and a mighty hand, with awe-inspiring deeds, signs, and wonders. Not the work of angels or emissaries, but the holy blessed one alone in solitary glory. Now the sojourn of the people of Israel who dwelt in Egypt spanned 430 years. So it was at the end of 430 years, precisely to the day, all the forces of Adonai went forth from the land of Egypt. For Adonai, it was a night of vigilance to bring them out of the land of Egypt. It is this very night that belongs to Adonai, a time of vigilance for all people, all the people of Israel throughout their generations.
Yasher Koach, Michael. It's so
Thank
good
you.
to see you. And
Thank you.
pray a refuah shlema, much strength to you. We continue on page 43. And now we lift up our cup of wine. I'm warning you, we don't drink from it yet. This is a bit of a tease. Vehi she'amda lavoteinu velanu. Vehi she'amda lavoteinu velanu. Shelo echad bilvad amad aleinu lechalotenu. Ela shebechol dor vador omdim aleinu lechalotenu. V'hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu mi'adam. And we set the cup down. And now we turn to the plagues, page 47. So you can get your pinky ready or a little teaspoon. Let me say a word. The mayor also mentioned plagues. It's a loaded word in the context of Pesach. And I just want to clarify that it could be that these plagues, the 10 against the Egyptians, were not intended to be punitive. They were not intended to be punishments. Sforno, the 15th century sage, suggests that these were intended to awaken the consciousness of Pharaoh and the Egyptians because God wanted them to have a change of heart. God wanted there to be teshuvah. God wanted Pharaoh and the Egyptians to chart a new course for themselves and for the Israelites, because true redemption is change that is for both the oppressed and the oppressor. Pharaoh, of course, refused to wake up, and so he and his people suffered for it. And we grieve for them. There's room in our hearts to grieve for them. If wine is the symbol of our joy, we take out just a bit of wine for each of the 10 as a way of diminishing our joy, showing empathy for the Egyptians. For if they had softened and opened their hearts, it would have been otherwise. So on page 47, you can find the listing of the 10 plagues. Here we go. Dam Svardea Hinim Arov, Dever, Shechin, Barad, Arba, Choshech, Makat Bechorot. Okay, now for a catchy tune, we're going to jump to page 48. Get your Dayenu ready. Am I right? We're already up to that? Let's see. What's page?
Yeah.
Abhishek, did you? Yeah,
No,
that's
no,
it.
don't
Okay,
worry.
94. That's it. So in our house, we've taken up a Yemenite tradition, which is to use scallions as if they were the whips of the taskmasters. But we're going to do this gently, everybody, right? So pass the scallions
No.
around.
We have sons. No. Just like there.
I'm having
Take
trouble
two, because
finding
the
your
first one's gonna break. Yeah, geez.
All right, all together now. Kama malotovod lamakom aleinu. Ilu hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, dayenu. Dayenu, dayenu. Ilu Natan lanu et Shabbat, Natan lanu et Shabbat, dayenu, balapa dayenu, dayenu, dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et Torah, Natan lanu et Torah, dayenu, balapa dayenu, dayenu. Ilu hichnisanu l'Eretz Yisrael, dayenu. All right, Avishai, you're up on page 50, or for you, it's page 96.
Yep. As in every age and generation, the task is ours, to see ourselves as if we had come out of Egypt. As it is said, make clear to your child that on that day, this is because of what Adonai did for me, when I myself went forth from Egypt. And then together, still we remember, it was we who were slaves, it was we who were strangers, and therefore we recall these words as well. You shall not oppress the stranger, for you know the stranger's innermost feelings. Having been strangers yourselves in the land of Egypt. And when strangers dwell with you in your land, you shall not wrong them. The stranger who dwells with you shall be like a citizen among you, and you shall love that person as yourself.
For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Okay, pass to Eli. Page 52.
Rejoice before your God eternal. Rejoice with your children and those who serve you, with the Levite and the stranger in your communities, with the orphan and the widow in your midst.
And remember, you were a slave in Egypt.
Not only did the Holy One redeem our fathers and mothers of old, indeed, God redeems us with them. As it is said, God brought us out of there to gather us in and give us the land promised on oath to our ancestors.
Page 54, Jesse. And now we're going to raise our cups again for this passage.
Therefore, this is our sacred task, to thank, praise, revere, and exalt, beautify, bless, acclaim, and adore, the one who did wonderful things for our mothers and fathers of old and for us. God brought us forth from slavery to freedom, from sorrow to joy, from mourning to celebration, from darkness to radiance, from the yoke of tyranny to the dawn of redemption. So let us bring forth a song that is new, sing hallelujah.
Okay, we will sing hallelujah. On page 55, I'm running in two Haggadot here. Page 55, we're going to sing hallelujah together. Hallelujah, 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 Abdei Adonai. Hallelujah, 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 et Shem Adonai. Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach me'ata ve'ad olam. Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach me'ata ve'ad olam. And let's continue on the next page. The psalmist also says that we might go to sleep with tears on our pillows, but we can wake up with joy. And it seems that that's been our pattern for a long time now, but there will be joy in the morning. Page 56. בצאת ישראל ממצרים, בית יעקב מעם לועז. בצאת ישראל ממצרים, בית יעקב מעם לועז. הייתה יהודה לקודשו, ישראל מכשלותיו, הים רב וינוס, הירדן ייסוב לאחור. בצאת ישראל ממצרים, בית יעקב מעם לועז. A couple lines down. מלך הים, כי תנוס, הירדן, תיסוב לאחור, ההרים, תרקדו חיילים, גבעות, כבני צאן. I think we'll come to Shul in the morning and hear the rest, and we will press on now to, to Miriam's cup. So this is a relatively new ritual object on the Seder table. Let's invite Rabbi and Katie Goodman to the screen, and they will lead us in coming to know Miriam and her cup.
Fill our cup with water. Kos Miriam al Shuma, the cup of Miriam, what is its meaning? From the river Nile to the Sea of Reeds, our people's story ebbs and flows like water.
And so, it began with Pharaoh's order. Every Hebrew boy that is born, you shall throw into the Nile. But one beautiful newborn was placed in a wicker basket among the reeds of the river. The baby's sister, Miriam, stood by and watched to learn what would happen. When the boy was found by Pharaoh's daughter Miriam asked, "Shall I bring a Hebrew nurse to suckle the child for you?" Naming the baby Moses, Pharaoh's daughter explained it this way: "I drew him out of the water." From the river Nile to the Sea of Reeds, water is the sign of our people's birth. Moses held out his arm over the sea, and the waters were split. The Israelites entered the sea on dry ground. The waters formed a wall for them to the right and to the left. Then Moses and the Israelites sang a song of celebration to Adonai, and Miriam, the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand and chanted for the women. Beyond river and sea, water marks the journey of redemption through wilderness. Into the bitter waves, a piece of wood was thrown, and it turned the water sweet and good to drink. Encamped at the 12 springs of Elim, the Israelites sated their thirst under 70 palms. Soon after, the manna rained upon them like bread from heaven. And the same rod that split the sea brought forth water from the rock for those who had doubted God's presence. Deep in the wilderness at the air, Adonai said, "Assemble the people that I may ascending from mountaintops with us, descending into valleys, a wandering well for a wandering people." Miriam's well revived and refreshed our parched throats and scorched spirits in a bone-dry desert. Some say the well died with Miriam, or disappeared after Moses' death. And some believe it still exists somewhere in the Sea of Galilee. It exists here too, on our Seder table tonight. With a sacred cup of life-giving water, we remember Miriam, sustainer of our people, and give thanks to the infinite wellspring that is with us on our way.
So one custom is to take the Miriam's cup that's filled with water and to draw a little water into each of the cups that are on your table, allowing Miriam to bring water to all of us. And we'll say the blessing Adonai, as you sustained our ancestors and gave them courage, sustain us in life, inspire us to act. As you offered them hope in dire straits, fill us with hope. As Miriam led our forebears in dance at the shore of the sea, so let the joy of redemption be ours. And let your infinite wellspring be our source of blessings. Miriam ha'nivya, oz v'zimra b'yada, Miriam tirkol itanu lehagdil zimrat olam, bimhera b'yamenu, hitaviyaenu, el mei ha'shua, el mei ha'shua, Miriam ha'nivya, oz v'zimrat b'yada, Miriam tirkol itanu letaken et ha'olam. With the second cup, we recall the second promise of liberation. We say together, Shene'emar v'hitzalti etchem avodatam. As it is said, I will save you from their forced labor. We raise our glasses, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher ga'alnu, v'ga'al ha'avotenu mimitzrayim, v'ga'alnu laila hazeh, l'achol bo matzah u'maror. Source of blessing, sovereign God of eternity, you have redeemed us and our ancestors from Egypt and brought us to this night on which we taste matzah and maror. So too bring us in peace to many other festive seasons, that we may serve you in joy, take delight in the rebuilding of Jerusalem, recall the ceremonies of old, and sing you a new song, Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. We pray together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, borei pari hagafen. Moving right along, we're going to jump now to the washing of our hands. The washing of our hands is a spiritual need, a spiritual purity, and perhaps you have a water basin of sorts. The blessing for the washing of our hands is the typical format ending with al netilat yadayim. So if you'd like, we're doing it right at the table. If you need to stand up and go to the away, that's quite all right as well. But you can take your water and go 3 times on each hand. We'll say together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav al netilat yadayim. Source of blessing, God of eternity, your majestic might fills the universe. You teach us pathways to holiness, among them this uplifting act, the ceremonial cleansing of our hands. May we always lift our hands in acts of goodness and service. Chag Sameach l'kulam.
Chag Sameach Yasher Koach. So we've doubled down on hand washing, and now we are ready for Motzi Matzah. Page 66, we call Marty Sterling to the screen to lead us. Get that matzah ready.
Thank you. The Mishnah records a saying of Rabban Gamliel, one who has not discussed the meaning of these 3 things has not fulfilled the purpose of the Seder, Pesach, Matzah, Maror. The Pesach offering is what our ancestors ate when the temple stood. What is its meaning? It reminds us that the Holy One passed over the homes of our ancestors in Egypt. As it is written, you shall say, it is a Pesach offering for Adonai, who passed over the homes of the Israelites in Egypt when God struck the Egyptians but spared our houses. Our ancestors in Egypt gathered with family, friends, and neighbors to eat the Pesach offering. And still we come together at the Passover table to share this feast, renewing our bonds of love and friendship. In gratitude to God, guardian of our homes, we join tonight with the whole household of Israel. Matzah zu she'anu ochlim, al shum ma. It reminds us that this matzah that we eat, what is the meaning? It reminds us that the dough prepared by our ancestors had no time to rise before the Holy One redeemed them, as it is written. They baked unleavened cakes with the dough, for they were driven out of Egypt and could not delay, nor did they prepare any provisions for themselves.
Yasher koach, Marty. Chag sameach.
Chag sameach.
So now we take the uppermost matzah out of the stack of 3, and we take a piece of that top matzah, and we get ready for the blessing. We're on page. Well, it's not far. You can find it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lecha min haaretz. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. And now we get to eat the matzah for the first time in a long time.
Not great.
And isn't it delicious? Now, I know some people love matzah, some people less so. For those who do not love matzah, this has to be your only bite for the whole festival, the whole week's festival. This is the only time we're actually commanded to eat the matzah. The rest of the week, the only mitzvah we need to fulfill is not to eat chametz. So there are lots of other good foods we can eat if you want to avoid the matzah. Now we're going to move on to maror. And Jack Kugelmass is going to lead us, page 70. Jack and Helene, Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Maror, ze she'anu ochlin al shuma.
This bitter herb that we eat, what is its meaning? It reminds us that the Egyptians embittered the lives of our ancestors in Egypt. As it is written, they made their lives bitter with harsh labor, with mortar and bricks, and toil in the fields. All the labor they ruthlessly forced on them.
Tonight, we taste again the bitterness of slavery. We feel the sting of our ancestors' tears and those of all who have been enslaved in our own country and around the world. As it is written, I am a Jew because whenever suffering weeps, the Jew weeps.
As the children of slaves, we must stand with all who are afflicted and work to liberate those in captivity. As it is written, freedom is indivisible, and when one person is enslaved, all are not free.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat maror. Amen. Keep going. Korech. Zecher lemikdash kehillel. Zecher lemikdash kehillel ken asa Hillel. Bizman shebeit hamikdash haya kayam. Haya korech pesach, matzah, maror, ve'ochel biyachad. Lekayem ma shene'amar, al matzot mirorim yochluhu.
Past. We keep the custom of Hillel from those days when the temple existed. Hillel would combine matzah and maror with the Pesach offering. Then, in fulfillment of ancient teaching, eat the symbols of our redemption together. As it is said, with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, they shall eat it.
So we mix the maror and charoset and matzah and b'teavon.
B'Teavon and Chag Sameach. And Jack, I hardly recognize you with your tie on.
Pesach. Pesach.
For Yom Tov. I love it. Chag Sameach. So we can enjoy that Hillel sandwich with the bitter and the sweet combined. That is the way of the world, the bitter and the sweet combined. So as we're preparing for the Shulchan Aruch, for our meal, in just a moment, I'm going to ask Deanna to give us some instruction about how the Zoom dining rooms are going to work. But I'd like to conclude this portion of the Seder with a beautiful poem that came out early in the pandemic, which is really about the mixing of the bitter and the sweet. It's entitled History Will Remember When the World Stopped by Donna Ashworth. History will remember when the world stopped and the flights stayed on the ground and the cars parked in the street and the trains didn't run. History will remember when the schools closed and the children stayed indoors and the medical staff walked towards the fires and they didn't run. History will remember when the people sang on their balconies, in isolation but so very much together in courage and song. History will remember when the people fought for their old and their weak, protected the vulnerable by doing nothing at all. History will remember when the virus left and the houses opened and the people came out and hugged and kissed and started again, kinder than before. We look forward to that day, and may it come speedily. B'mheira v'yameinu. And now, Deanna, if you could just give us a little instruction for the half hour we're going to spend in our Zoom dining rooms or eating at our own tables independently, that would be helpful. And we're going to meet back here, everyone, at 8:30 sharp. And the second half of the Seder is a lot more fun than the first. Extra cups of wine help and more singing. So please rejoin at 8:30. Okay, Deanna, take it away. Okay, welcome back, everyone. You're welcome to continue with your meal. Don't be shy about that. But for the sake of time, we are going to press on to the next order of the Seder. I hope your meal was delicious. I hope the matzah balls were fluffy. I hope the brisket was tender. And those of you who are in the Zoom dining rooms, I hope you had some great company. I hope that you met up with some new and old friends. I'd love to hear about that. Maybe even in the chat box, you could share some of your experiences if you met up with an old friend, or if you played Jewish geography with a new friend and found some connections you didn't know you had. So the Tzafun section of the Seder is when we search for the Afikomen, when we search for something that is hidden. So in just a moment, we're going to have if you don't have hidden matzah in your house, Deanna's going to pull up a search and find where you can search for the hidden matzah in the scene. And another alternative, while my kids go to look for the afikomen in the living room, an alternative is you could write in the chat box something that you've discovered during this year of pandemic. Something you discovered that you didn't know you were even looking for. Okay, so boys, you can find your way. What are the parameters, Adam?
It's in the living room.
In the living room. And Deanna, if you could pull up that Where's Waldo, find the hidden matzah. Okay, good luck. We're going to take a couple minutes for the search, and then we'll meet back together to eat the dessert, the afikomen dessert.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu.
Okay, we found it. Wow. Did you have to hurt each other to find this? We found it.
Lettuce in my ear.
Excellent. Okay, so if you found the afikomen, you can take a piece. There's no bracha. We already said the blessings, but enjoy it because this is dessert. Delicious. Okay. And if you found the hidden matzah in that scene, that cartoon of Egypt, then you have really good eyesight. Okay. Birkat Hamazon can be found on page 79, I believe, in the flip book, page 79. Shir Hamalot B'shuv Adonai Het Shivat Zion Ayinu Kechomim Az Yimale Tzchok Minu Shonenu Rina Az Yomru V'Hagoyim Higdil Adonai La'asot Imelech Higdil Adonai La'asot Imanu Hayinu Smechim Shuv Adonai Het Shivitenu Ka'afikim B'Negel Azorim Bedima Berina Yitzoru Haloch Yelechu V'Achol Nosem Meshach Ha'ara Lo Yavo Verina Nahoseh Alumotav. On the left side of the page, Chaverai Nevarech Yehi Shem Adonai V'Barach Me'atav V'Atam V'Reshut Maranam V'Rabanan V'Rabotai Nevarech Eloheinu Shalchanu Mishalom Baruch Eloheinu Shalchanu Mishalom Tuvo Chayinu Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. Next page. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hazan et haolam kulo b'tuvo b'chen b'chaser u'b'rachamim hu noten lechem l'chol basar ki le'olam chaso u'b'tuvo hagadol tamid lo chasar lanu v'hayasar lanu mazon le'olam va'ed ba'avor shemo hagadol ki hazan u'farnes la'kol Umetiv lakol umechin mazam lechol briotav asher bara baruch atah Adonai hazan et hakol. We're going to skip to the next right side page. Ve'al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'varchim otach yitbarach shimcha b'fi kochai tamid le'olam va'ed kam katuv v'yachalta v'sabata u'verachta Et Adonai Elohecha al haaretz hatova. Baruch atah Adonai al haaretz ve'al hamazon. We're going to skip 2 pages, 3 pages. Zochreinu Adonai Eloheinu bo letova. U'fokteinu bo livracha. V'hoshienu bo lechayim. Uvenei Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh b'mehera b'yameinu Baruch atah Adonai Boneh v'rachamav Yerushalayim Amen. Harachaman Hu yimloch alenu le'olam va'ed. Harachaman Hu yitbarach b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Harachaman Hu yishtabach ledor dorim V'yitba'ar banu la'ad le'netzach netzachim V'yitadar banu la'ad le'olmei olamim. Harachaman Hu yafarsenu bechavod. Harachaman Hu yishpor leinu me'al tzavareinu V'hu yolichenu kamamiyot la'artzenu. Harachaman Hu yishlach lanu et Eliyahu hanavi. Harachaman Hu yishlach lanu et Eliyahu hanavi zachor latov. V'vaser lanu lanu V'vaser lanu lanu V'vaser lanu b'sorot tovot Yeshuot v'nechamot. Harachaman Hu yishlach lanu rucham rabba b'bayit hazeh v'al shulchan zeh shachanu alav. Harachaman ויברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. Skip to the next page, הרחמן, וינחילנו יום שכולו טוב. הרחמן, ויזכנו למות המשיח, ולחיי העולם הבא. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל אמרו אמן. יראו את אדוני קדושיו, כי אין מחסור לרעיו, כפי משהו ורעבו, ודרש אדוני לא צריכו טוב. הודו לאדוני כי טוב, כי לעולם חסדו, פתח את ידיך, ומשביע לכל חרצון. ברוך הגבר שיבטח באדוני, והיה אדון מבטחו. נער הייתי גם זקנתי ולא ראיתי צדיק נעזוב. זר מבקש לכם וזר מבקש לכם אדוני עוז. לעמו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. היי לה 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 יאי לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלom. And now we fill up the third cup and we turn to page 86. Yeah, I would like some more of the sweet stuff. Shene'amar, it is written, V'ga'alti etchem bizroa nituya. Together we take up our cups of wine to recall the third divine promise. With an arm outstretched, I will redeem you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. And you can lean to the left if you wish. Reclining like free people. And now we turn, okay. This is moving along quickly now. Page 90, we're going to turn to the theme of Eliyahu Hanavi. So it's our custom to actually start with an empty cup of Elijah and do just the opposite of what Rabbi Goodman led us with Miriam's cup. Miriam's cup we all partook. She was nourishing us, quenching our thirst with water from her well. But now we're the ones to fill up Eliyahu's cup. So if you could take that big Eliyahu cup, the kosel shel Eliyahu at the middle of the table, pass it around, and we each empty a little bit of our wine cup into Eliyahu's cup, Elijah's cup, and that's a way of signifying that we each have a role to play in bringing about the dawning of the Messianic age. And as we pass it, you might even want to make a quiet pledge to yourself about what you intend to do this year to bring us closer to a world redeemed, a world filled only with justice and compassion and peace. So that can go back to the center. And we're going to continue on page 88, Kos Eliyahu al Shum Ma. And I guess, why don't we stand as we serenade Eliyahu. Yes, if you could open the front door, we're going to turn to page 90 and we'll rise to greet Eliyahu and to invite him to join us at our Seder tables. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bimhera b'yameinu, Yahavo Emeinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David. Okay. So, guys, come check out the cup and see if it's been reduced in any way. If Eliyahu came to drink from our cup. We could say that Elijah is really the only guest that is safe to welcome into our homes this Pesach. A rabbi once asked, where can I find Elijah? And the answer came, he sits at the entrance of the gate of the city, where the sick and the needy are sitting low on the ground, and he's sitting there with them. And the rabbi is shocked by this story and says, why would Eliyahu, the great prophet, be sitting outside the gates with the sick? And the answer comes, he's there to dress their wounds and to offer words of comfort and to change their bandages one by one. We welcome Eliyahu to drink from the cup that we have set out for him. We need you, Eliyahu, tonight more than ever. Come, Eliyahu, be the harbinger of healing for our world. And together we say, Amen.
Amen. Amen.
And now we're going to turn to page 180. Adam, let's pour the fourth cup. We're already at the fourth cup. And then Adam, you can lead us.
Hallelujah. Let us praise the infinite and eternal, who is beyond all hymns and songs that we can utter, yet dwells among us. Let us thank those who came before us. With poetry of praise, we link ourselves to all of them, from the singers, psalmists, and musicians of the ancient altar to countless ancestors at family tables like ours. Like them, we drink deep from the cup of tradition.
Hallelujah, Adonai, kol goyim, shabechu kol haomim, ki gavar aleinu chasto, ve'emet Adonai leolam. Hallelujah. The next page. Hodu l'Adonai, ki tov, ki leolam, ki leolam chasto. Yadadalalai, 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 ki leolam chasto. How does the Adiru? Hodu l'Adonai, ki tov, ki leolam chasto. Hodu l'Adonai, ki tov, ki leolam chasto. Hodu l'Adonai, ki leolam chasto. And again, I want to encourage everyone to come to enjoy the full Hallel with Cantor Rosen and Cantorial Soloist Lindy Rivers and Temple Singers and our choir. That's when we'll get the full Hallel. But for now, let's turn to the next page, and Adam's going to lead us in this prayer asking for God's protection and for God's help, which is needed more than ever today.
Ana Adonai Hoshiana.
Ana Adonai Hoshiana.
Ana Adonai Hatzlichana.
Ana Adonai Hatzlichana.
Ana Adonai Hatzlichana. We pray, Adonai, bring us to safety. Please, Adonai, lead us to deliverance. We pray, Adonai, grant us success. Please, Adonai, help us to prosper. And this is a poem by Kitty O'Meara, an Irish American. And the people stayed home and read books and listened to music and to one another more deeply, and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows, and the people began to think differently, and the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices and dreamed new dreams and created new ways to live and help the earth as they had been healed. And heal the earth as they had been healed.
So that is our prayer on this Pesach, that we will all know a complete healing, a refuah shlema for us, for our families, for our neighbors, our fellow citizens, and for all the world. Let's continue now on page 96. And Avishai is going to lead us in a melody on the left-hand side of the page. Actually, let's start at the top of the page. Out of the depths and out of the narrow places I call out to my God who answers me by setting me free. That is also our prayer this day, that from our narrow places we will be set free to breathe deep again. Min hamitzar karatia, ahanani b'merchavya. Min hamitzar karatia, ahanani b'merchavya. Anani, anani, anani b'merchavya. Anani, anani, anani b'merchavya. And now the second to last stanza on this same page, Ozi v'zimratya v'yehi li lishua. These are words that we sang at the crossing of the sea. And Avishai, who is going to be the Camp George head song leader this summer, God willing, is going to lead us. Beautiful. Thank you, Shai. And now we move to the last section of the Seder, Nirtza, page 99. And Eli is going to lead us as we take up the fourth cup.
Redemption is not yet complete. And so, recalling words that have shaped us as people, we raise the fourth cup. And with this cup, we accept the tasks of justice and the tikkun that still awaits us. And we honor the purpose of the Jewish people, to affirm our covenant with God who freed us from slavery, and to open doorways of hope to all. As it is said, Shneamar lakachti etchem li'lam, and I will take you for my own to be a people. Source of blessing, sovereign God of eternity, the fruit of the vine is your fruit.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen l'chaim. And you can drink deep and finish off this fourth and final cup. We're rounding the bend on the Seder night. Page 100. The Seder for Pesach now comes to an end. Its customs enjoyed, all the rites fulfilled, each in its proper order, each in its sacred way. Having been worthy to honor this tradition, may we be worthy of bringing its message to life. Chasal Sidur Pesach kehilchato, kechol mishpato vechukato, כאשר זכינו לסדר אותו, כן נזכה לעשותו, כן נזכה לעשותו, לשנה הבאה בירושלים, לשנה הבאה בירושלים, לשנה הבאה בירושלים, לשנה הבאה בירושלים הבנויה. Next year in Jerusalem, next year in person, gathered around in a joyful reunion with family and friends. And it's not too early to book your next ticket to Israel. Plan your next trip. The tourist industry there really needs our support. So now we're going to continue rounding out the night with a few of our favorite Pesach songs. I hope you're singing along at home. I really do. We're on page 101. Adirhu, adirhu, yivne beitov bekarov, bimheira, bimheira, v'yameinu bekarov, el b'nei, b'nei beitcha bekarov, bachor hu, gadol hu, dagul hu, yivne beitov bekarov, bimheira, bimheira, v'yameinu bekarov, el b'nei, b'nei beitcha bekarov. We can sing more verses at our second Seder. We're going to continue now with Echad Miyodea, page 102. Echad Miyodea, Echad Ani Yodea, Echad Eloheinu, 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 Sheba Shamayim u'va'aretz, Sheba Shamayim u'va'aretz, Shnayim Yodea, Shnayim Ani Yodea, Shnei luchot habrit, Echad Eloheinu, 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 Sheba Shamayim u'va'aretz, Sheba Shamayim u'va'aretz, Shlosha mi yodea, Shlosha ani yodea, Shlosha avot shnei luchot habrit, Echad Eloheinu, 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 Sheba Shamayim u'va'aretz, Sheba Shamayim u'va'aretz. Maybe we'll jump to the last verse and we'll pack it all in. That is on page 105. Shlosha asar mi yodea, Shlosha asar ani yodea, Shlosha asar midaya, Shnei asar shiftaya, Chad asar chochlaya, Asara dibraya, Tisha yechei leda, Shmona yemei mila, Shiva yemei shavata, Shisha sidrei mishnah, Chamisha chumshei Torah, Arba yemahot, Shlosha havot, Shnei luchot habrit, Echad Eloheinu, 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 Sheba Shamayim.
Does it say chat?
Sheba Shamayim u'va'aretz. And now for the grand finale. We're going to do it once as best we can here, and then there's a surprise for you, which is a video prepared by Cantor Rosen and Temple Singers, a version of Chad Gadya you might not know, but it's really a lot of fun. That's how we're going to finish off our Seder tonight. But first, let's do the melody that I hope everyone knows. I think we're on page 106 in the slide deck.
What language are we doing this in?
Oh, good question. Let's do 2 verses in Aramaic, and then we can switch over into English. Okay? Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya, Dizvan Abba Bitre Zuze, Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya, Ve'ata Shum Rabba Alcha Legadya, Dizvan Abba Bitre Zuze, Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. Okay, you guys lead it your way now.
Which way is
Which way is my way? Then came the cat that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. Then came the dog that bit the cat. That ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya.
Then came the stick that beat the dog. Woof. That bit the cat. Meow. That ate the kid.
My father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya.
Then came the fire. Woof. that burned the stick, that beat the dog, that hit the cat, that ate the kid. My father bought for two zoos in Chad Gadya. Then came the water, whoosh, that quenched the fire, that burnt the stick, that bit the dog, woof, that bit the cat, meow, that ate the kid, bah. My father bought for two zoos in Chad Gadya. Then came the ox, moo, that ate the water, whoosh, that burned the fire. No, wait, that quenched the fire, bah, that burned the stick, that beat the dog, woof, too much wine. Meow, ate the kid, bah.
Okay, jump to the last verse.
There's like two last verses.
Chad Gadya.
Then came the Holy One, blessed be God, yeah! Who slew the angel of death, boo! Then who slew the butcher, that slew the ox, moo! That drank the water, whoosh! That quenched the fire, that burnt the stick, that beat the dog, woof! That bit the cat, meow! That ate the kid, Bob.
My father bought for two zoos in Chad Gadya. Okay, now Deanna, I think you have that video queued up. I know we're going to enjoy it.
It's still my favorite song.
Or we could have another round of Chad Gadya.
Please no. Please no.
The Saul Boys way.
No.
1 second, I'm trying to get it to work.
Okay, if it doesn't work, we'll maybe
Do
we'll
something.
You guys should have seen when I found the Afikomen.
Yeah.
Eli in revenge put a scallion in my ear.
left over
And
from
I
Diano.
can still hear it.
Maybe you're interfering. Cancel out.
I think I am. I can hear everything. It's somehow not showing up for me to be able to play the video.
Oh, that's a shame. Okay. Well, I think we are going to be, I think it's being incorporated into tomorrow's service. So in just a moment, we're going to unmute everyone so we can wish each other Chag Sameach. I do want to just call attention to tomorrow's service at 10 o'clock. And there'll be Hallel and beautiful Torah reading. And then 7th day Pesach falls on Shabbat. So a week from today, that service will also be at 10 o'clock, and that's when we'll be observing Yizkor. So please do come to remember loved ones from long ago and from recent losses. I know there have been many this year, sadly. So we'll take comfort in the Yizkor service together. And maybe in place of that Chad Gadya, maybe I'll end on one hopeful poem. I just came across this week, and it resonated in so many ways with me as I'm thinking about what we're longing for this time of year, this year in particular. It's called Everything is Waiting for You by David White. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way that the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you. And the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. So put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you. Chag Sameach, everyone. We're going to unmute you and we want to hear your voices.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, everyone.
Chag Sameach, everyone.
Can we sing?
Sameach.
Let's sing.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
It was so beautiful to share Seder with you. It was
Thank
so
you very much, Rabbi.
So beautiful.
Thank you, Deanna.
Thanks,
And to
Deanna.
Deanna, too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Thank you for
opening
your homes. Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi and Soul family. Yeah.
Yes.
Who knew we'd ever get an invitation to the Rabbi's home?
Thank you.
This is the character.
Laila Tov. Laila Tov.